Hi, my name is Saba and this is my presentation. In the first week of the class, we read about Voodoo. We learned where Voodoo was originated from, the deities, the cultures, and the rituals. One of the most famous names in Voodoo is Marie Laveau, who is also known as the Voodoo Queen, and today I'm going to talk about her. Marie Laveau was born in New Orleans, Louisiana, and she had a very mysterious life. But before I talk about her, I'd like to talk a little bit about New Orleans. New Orleans is a very special city in a sense that it's a mixture of different beliefs and cultures. You have Spanish and French people who moved there, you have slaves who were brought there at a time, and each of these groups of people, they brought with themselves their religion and their practices. So over time, folk prose started growing, legends started growing, and these stories became very popular. And this, combined with the history of the city, made New Orleans a very superstitious city, and some even say that the city is haunted by many ghosts. So many of the stories that are coming from New Orleans don't have much documentation to back them up, and they are mostly based on the folklore, and Marie Laveau's story is no exception. There is not much documentation about her life, and some even say that some of the documents that are available have been altered by the Laveau family themselves. Marie Laveau was born between 1794 and 1801, but there's not the exact date on when she was born. Some say 1794, some say 1801. But her dad was a white plantation owner, and her mother was a black woman who was her dad's mistress. Marie Laveau was born as a free woman of color in French quarters. Her first husband was Jacques Paris, who was also a free man of color, but he mysteriously disappeared 3 years after their marriage. Marie Laveau's second husband was a white man by the name of Louis Christophe Dominy. Some stories has it that Marie Laveau and Dominy had 15 children together, but there are other documents that say they only had 5 kids and the rest were nephews. Marie Laveau's first daughter was also named Marie, and she resembled Marie Laveau a lot and played an important role in continuing Marie Laveau's legacy. When Marie Laveau was young, Voodoo culture from Haiti was becoming very popular in New Orleans. And Marie Laveau had powers. She had secret knowledge, she had a knowledge of the spells, and she was able to communicate with the spirits. And according to legends, she starts working with a voodoo doctor by the name of Dr. John or John Bayou. And John Bayou teaches Marie Laveau about herbs and their medicinal use. He teaches Marie Laveau about voodoo rituals and how to make gris-gris. For those of you who don't remember, gris-gris is some sort of an amulet that is made from small cloth, and inside it there are dried herbs, bones, even animal skins. But what's most important about this gris-gris is the intention that they are made with. You can have a good gris-gris, which is used for health and protection, or a bad gris-gris, which is basically used to curse someone. So according to some stories, after working with John Bayou, Marie Laveau reached her full potential and started holding her own ceremonies and performing her own rituals, which included drumming, dancing. She had a snake by the name of Zambi who she would dance with around the fire. Some even say she danced naked with the snake. And she would go into the trance and talk with the spirits. And some say she was so powerful that even her audience became possessed during the ceremony. Also, Marie Laveau started granting favors. She would pray on behalf of people who came to her and ask the spirits for their help. People came to her mostly for fertility issues, for health issues that they had in their families, or even predicting the future. What's really interesting is that both black and white people would come to Marie Laveau for her help. Marie Laveau supposedly helped black people for free, but charged white people a lot of money. As I said before, Voodoo was becoming a very popular culture, and there were many priestesses holding their own ceremonies at a time. But Marie Laveau was considered the boss woman. She was the Voodoo queen. And This title is not just because of her powers. She had another weapon in her possession, and that was gossip. Marie Laveau was a hairdresser full of white rich women. And women back then were no different than women now. They would talk to their hairdresser, they would tell them their secrets, their issues in their lives, as well as everybody else's lives. And so Marie Laveau gained a lot of knowledge about what was going on in people's lives in that way. In addition to that, Marie Laveau had a lot of spies in the town, and her spies were the slaves who were working at the rich people's houses. And through intimidation, fear, or even friendship, Marie Laveau would be informed about what was going on behind closed doors and the gossip in the town. And so she gained a lot of leverage over people in the city. Some say the information that Marie Laveau claimed she received from the spirits was partly what she learned from her spies. But most importantly, Marie Laveau used this information to informally blackmail people and get them to do what she wanted. One of the events that really helped Marie Laveau prove her legitimacy in the town was when she was able to free a young boy with her powers. The story is that a guy's son is on trial and he was not able to find any way to save his son, so he goes to Marie Laveau and asks for her help. And according to legend, Marie Laveau goes to the court where the trial was going to be held the next day, and she starts praying and putting 3 hot peppers in her mouth. When the spirits saw her suffering, they paid attention and they answered her prayer. And so Marie Laveau took this pepper out of her mouth, put them underneath the judge's desk, and the next day the boy walks out free and the judge announced that he's not guilty. So this is what the legend has it. But there's also another explanation. Some say that Marie Laveau had a lot of knowledge. She knew about all the gossip that was going on in the town. So she just simply went to the judge and blackmailed him to let the boy walk out free. Nevertheless, people decided to believe that Marie Laveau used her powers to free the boy, and so Laveau became this very powerful character in the city who everyone believed that could alter the events and swing everything to her favor or what she wanted. There is no doubt that Marie Laveau was a very powerful woman of her time, but there's a lot of controversy about whether she was a good woman or an evil one, and I'm going to talk about both of these sides. So starting with the good. Many historians say that Marie Laveau used her powers only for good. She only made good gree. She used her powers for love and health. She helped black people for free. During the time of yellow fever, Marie Laveau allegedly used her knowledge of the medicine to cure many people. Most importantly, Marie Laveau lived through slavery and the Civil War, and she was famous for working against racial discrimination and objecting to suffering and injustice. So she was a helper to white people, but to black people she was a leader. So she became this saint-like character. She was a very powerful woman who used her powers for good. But there are many stories who believe that Marie Laveau was not a good person. They blame many unexplained deaths on her. So many of the white people started accusing Marie Laveau of heresy. They started blaming Voodoo for their problems and considered Voodoo to be a demonic and evil religion. And so they were against all of these practices and rituals and ceremonies. What you need to consider is that these events happened during slavery and civil war. So white people were concerned that these gatherings and these voodoo ceremonies will eventually lead to an uprising. So government made voodoo gatherings and ceremonies illegal except for Sundays. So every Sundays people would gather in Congo Square in New Orleans and would perform their ceremonies. Where the line between Marie Laveau's character being good or evil gets very blurry is that even though the ceremonies were illegal, even though white people were worried about this, there were still white people who were attending Marie Laveau's ceremonies. They would come to her and ask for favors. So that's why there's not a definite answer to if Marie Laveau was an evil character or a good one. But what's important is that Mary Laveau worked hard to make voodoo more exposed to the society. She would invite police officers, government, newspaper journalists to join her ceremonies and participate in them. And in this way, she expanded her legacy. More and more people started knowing about Mary Laveau, and she became even more powerful. Mary Laveau died in 1881, but even after her death, many people claimed that Mary Laveau was still alive. She was walking in the streets, people were still going to her and asking for favors. So the rumors started growing that Mary Laveau cheated death, and even though she was dead, her legacy started growing and she became known as an even more powerful person. But the truth behind the story is that this person was Mary Laveau's daughter, who I talked about earlier, who was also named Mary and resembled Mary Laveau a lot. So Mary Laveau, the daughter, started continuing her mother's work. She started holding ceremonies, performing rituals, and granting favors. And this way, she continued her mother's legacy and grew her name. Even now, there are many people who believe that Mary Laveau's ghost still haunts the city and has a great influence on the events that are happening in the city. Some even claim that they see Mary Laveau, or she comes to their dreams, or she grants favors. Many people come to visit her tomb and believe that she can answer their prayers. So what they do is that they draw 3 X marks on the side of her tomb and wait for her to answer their prayers. And there are also many people who decided to make their own take on Mary Laveau's story. And one of the most interesting stories that I found was in American Horror Story. If you guys are familiar with it, in the 3rd season of American Horror Story, the story is about a coven of witches. And in the story, you see Mary Laveau, and the series shows it takes on Mary Laveau's legend. And one of the most interesting ones is Mary Laveau's eternal youth and how she cheated death. And their story is that Mary Laveau makes a deal with Papa Legba, who is the deity for death. And so she exchanges her soul for eternal life or immortality. But the truth about Mary Laveau's story is still a mystery. This was my presentation. I hope you guys liked it. And I also found a music about Mary Laveau's life that I'm going to put in a link below. And I hope you guys enjoy the music, and let me know if you have any questions. Thank you. Goodbye.